Princess Diana, portrayed by Emma Corrin in Season 4, and Elizabeth Debicki in Season 5 of The Crown, is one of the series' most compelling characters, capturing the fascination and sympathy of viewers around the world. The Crown presents Diana's life as a whirlwind of romance, betrayal, heartbreak, and media frenzy, portraying her as a tragic figure caught in the unrelenting gears of royal life. However, while the series captures certain aspects of Diana's personality and experiences, it also takes significant creative liberties, leading to numerous errors and misrepresentations that dramatize or distort her story. The portrayal of Diana's courtship with Prince Charles, a romance reduced to convenience. In The Crown, Diana Spencer's courtship with Prince Charles, played by Josh O'Connor, is depicted as a rushed, almost accidental romance, engineered more by the royal family's need for a suitable bride than by any real affection or connection between the two. The series portrays Diana as a naive teenager, caught up in a fairy tale, while Charles is shown as being deeply conflicted, torn between his duty to marry and his ongoing love for Camilla Parker Bowles. While it is true that Charles and Diana's courtship was relatively brief and did occur under the watchful eye of the royal family, the portrayal of their relationship as entirely devoid of genuine affection or interest is misleading. Historical accounts suggest that there was, at least initially, a degree of mutual attraction and curiosity. Charles himself later reflected on how he found Diana jolly and amusing when they first met. The series, however, compresses and simplifies the complexities of their early relationship, focusing heavily on the narrative that Diana was chosen purely for her suitability as a bride, rather than any real emotional connection. The simplification of Diana's personality, a saint or a sinner. The Crown often simplifies Princess Diana's personality, portraying her in a binary way as either a vulnerable, tragic figure overwhelmed by royal life, or as a manipulative individual who knows how to play the media to her advantage. This portrayal fails to capture the nuanced, multifaceted nature of Diana's real personality. While Diana was undoubtedly a vulnerable and empathetic person, especially in her early years in the royal family, she was also known for her intelligence, charm, humor, and savvy understanding of her public role. The show often reduces her to a victim or a manipulator, without fully exploring her complexities as a person who is both compassionate and at times capable of strategic thinking, particularly in her interactions with the press. This black-and-white depiction overlooks the layers of Diana's character, which included her deep sense of duty, her love for her children, and her genuine desire to use her position to make a positive difference in the world. The misrepresentation of Diana's eating disorder, a one-dimensional depiction of bulimia. One of the most dramatic aspects of Diana's portrayal in The Crown is her struggle with bulimia nervosa, which is depicted as an almost immediate response to the pressures of royal life and her troubled marriage. The show portrays scenes of Diana engaging in binge eating and purging, emphasizing the physical manifestations of her illness, but often without providing the necessary context for understanding the psychological complexities behind it. While it is accurate that Diana herself admitted to suffering from bulimia, the portrayal in The Crown lacks depth and sensitivity. The series tends to use her eating disorder as a visual shorthand for her unhappiness and desperation, without fully exploring the deeper emotional and psychological factors that contributed to her condition. In reality, Diana's bulimia was a complex issue linked to her feelings of inadequacy, her emotional struggles, and the intense scrutiny she faced from both the media and the royal family. The show's portrayal reduces this complexity, making her illness appear as a mere symptom of her marriage problems, rather than a multifaceted mental health issue that requires careful and compassionate understanding. The depiction of Diana's relationship with Prince Charles, a loveless and hostile marriage. The series portrays Diana's marriage to Prince Charles as a union marked by immediate coldness, hostility, and betrayal. From the outset, Charles is depicted as emotionally distant, aloof, and almost cruel, showing little interest in his new wife and maintaining a continuous, emotionally charged relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. Meanwhile, Diana is shown as being increasingly isolated, desperate for Charles's affection, and trapped in a marriage that offers her no love or support. While there is truth in the depiction of the difficulties in Charles and Diana's marriage, The Crown often overstates the animosity and underplays the moments of genuine affection and effort that both made, particularly in the early years. The portrayal neglects the times when they seemed happy together, shared common interests, and made public appearances where they seemed genuinely affectionate. It is important to recognize that while their marriage ultimately failed, the real-life relationship was not entirely devoid of warmth or attempts at reconciliation. By focusing exclusively on the negative, the series ignores the full spectrum of their marital dynamic, creating a more one-sided narrative that supports its dramatic aims. The dramatization of key events, fabricated or exaggerated interactions. The Crown frequently dramatizes or fabricates key events to heighten the emotional stakes of the narrative. For example, in the episode Terra Nullius, the show depicts a disastrous royal tour of Australia in 1983, suggesting that Charles and Diana's trip was marked by constant fighting, jealousy, and tension. The series portrays Charles as feeling overshadowed by Diana's popularity and resenting her ability to charm the crowds, while Diana is depicted as both enjoying the attention and feeling increasingly isolated from her husband. In reality, the 1983 tour of Australia was considered a success for both Charles and Diana. While it is true that Diana's popularity was evident and sometimes overshadowed Charles, historical accounts suggest that the couple presented a united front during the tour and had moments of genuine connection and affection. The show's portrayal of the tour as a near-total disaster is a distortion that serves to reinforce the narrative of their doomed marriage rather than reflecting the more balanced reality. The exaggeration of Diana's isolation and loneliness, a victim without agency. The Crown frequently emphasizes Diana's isolation and loneliness within the royal family, portraying her as being completely abandoned, unsupported, and surrounded by cold, indifferent figures who offer her no compassion or understanding. The show suggests that Diana was almost entirely alone in her struggle, with even her closest allies either powerless to help or reluctant to intervene. While Diana did face significant challenges and was often lonely, particularly during her early years in the royal family, the portrayal of her as an entirely isolated victim lacks nuance. In reality, Diana had several allies and friends within the royal household and beyond, who provided her with support and advice. She also had a complex relationship with the Queen, who, while often distant, was not necessarily as cold or unsympathetic as depicted in the series. By portraying Diana as entirely without agency or support, the series simplifies the dynamics of her life and underestimates her strength, resilience, and ability to navigate the complexities of her position. Diana's portrayal as a media manipulator, an oversimplification of her relationship with the press. The Crown suggests that Diana had a highly manipulative relationship with the media, deliberately courting press attention to shape public perception in her favor and undermine Charles. The series depicts her as understanding the power of the media from an early stage, using it to her advantage, and at times actively encouraging negative coverage of Charles and the royal family to present herself as a sympathetic figure. While it is true that Diana became adept at handling the media and did use her popularity to gain leverage in certain situations, the portrayal in The Crown often oversimplifies this dynamic. Diana's relationship with the press was far more complex and nuanced. She was both a victim of invasive media attention and someone who learned to navigate it to her advantage. Moreover, while she did at times use the media to tell her side of the story, the idea that she was consistently manipulative or calculating in her approach is an exaggeration. Diana's relationship with the press was marked by a mixture of necessity, strategy, vulnerability, and at times genuine distress over the intrusion into her private life. The portrayal of Diana's relationship with other royals, a distorted picture of conflict. The Crown depicts Diana's relationships with other members of the royal family, particularly Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth, as being marked primarily by conflict and tension. For instance, the series shows Philip threatening Diana, warning her against defying the institution of the monarchy, and presenting him as a figure who is almost hostile towards her. In reality, Diana's relationships with the royals were more nuanced and less uniformly antagonistic than depicted. While it is true that there were tensions, particularly with Prince Charles and Camilla, there is evidence that Diana had a complex but occasionally warm relationship with other members of the family. For example, Diana and Prince Philip reportedly shared a correspondence that was at times supportive, with Philip expressing concern and offering advice. The portrayal of the royal family as uniformly antagonistic towards Diana does not fully reflect the reality of these relationships, which were more varied and less monolithic than the series suggests. Diana's confrontation with Camilla, a fictionalized meeting. One of the most dramatic scenes in Season 4 is the imagined confrontation between Diana and Camilla Parker Bowles, played by Emerald Fennell, during a lunch in the episode Fairy Tale. The scene depicts Diana directly confronting Camilla about her ongoing relationship with Charles, leading to a tense and emotionally charged exchange where Diana accuses Camilla of undermining her marriage. While Diana did have some tense encounters with Camilla and was aware of the ongoing relationship between her and Charles, there is no historical evidence of a direct confrontation like the one portrayed in The Crown. The lunch scene in the episode Fairy Tale is a fictionalized event created to heighten the drama and illustrate the emotional conflict between the two women. In reality, Diana did privately express her distress over Charles's relationship with Camilla, but her approach was less direct and more restrained than what is depicted. The dramatic face-to-face showdown portrayed in the series is a creative choice, designed to give viewers a sense of Diana's anguish and the complexity of her situation, but it does not correspond to any documented meeting or conversation. This scene simplifies a complex emotional reality, reducing it to a single, confrontational moment that likely never happened. The portrayal of Diana's charitable work, overshadowed by drama. While The Crown does depict some of Diana's charitable work, such as her efforts to raise awareness about HIV/AIDS and her famous visit to a hospital where she shakes hands with a patient suffering from the disease, these moments are often overshadowed by the show's focus on her personal life and marital strife. The series presents Diana's humanitarian work as almost a side note to her role within the royal family, rather than as a central aspect of her identity. In reality, Diana's charitable endeavors were a significant and deeply personal part of her life. Her compassion, empathy, and willingness to engage with marginalized communities and controversial issues, such as landmines and AIDS, were central to her public image and earned her widespread admiration. The portrayal in The Crown downplays the extent and impact of her humanitarian efforts, often reducing them to symbolic gestures rather than acknowledging the genuine passion and commitment she brought to these causes. This approach diminishes the importance of her work and reduces her legacy to her role as a royal and a wife, rather than as a globally influential humanitarian. The suggestion of Diana's revenge and manipulation tactics, a simplified narrative. The series portrays Diana as engaging in deliberate manipulation to get back at Charles and the royal family. For example, it suggests that her participation in the infamous 1995 BBC Panorama interview with Martin Bashir, where she candidly spoke about her struggles, was primarily a move to undermine Charles and expose the inner workings of the royal family. While it is true that the interview was a significant moment in which Diana sought to tell her side of the story, the decision to participate was more complex than a simple act of revenge. Diana's motivations were multifaceted. She wanted to highlight her personal struggles, raise awareness of her humanitarian work, and reclaim her narrative amidst years of speculation and tabloid intrusion. The show simplifies these motivations, portraying her actions as almost solely driven by spite and a desire for retribution, which overlooks the genuine pain and courage involved in publicly sharing her story. Furthermore, it fails to acknowledge the manipulation she herself faced, such as the deceit by Martin Bashir that led her to agree to the interview in the first place. The portrayal of Diana's fashion and style evolution, a distorted emphasis on image over substance. The Crown often emphasizes Diana's fashion choices and evolution of style as key elements of her character, portraying her transformation from a shy, reserved young woman into a confident, glamorous style icon as a primary narrative arc. The series frequently focuses on her clothing, her appearance, and the media frenzy surrounding her style, suggesting that her fashion choices were mainly a strategy to assert her independence and position within the royal family. While Diana's fashion was indeed a major part of her public persona, she was much more than just a style icon. Her clothing choices were often a reflection of her evolving identity and her desire to connect with the public in a way that felt authentic to her. However, the emphasis in The Crown can sometimes reduce her to a mere figure of media spectacle, overlooking the depth of her character and her broader impact. Diana used her image and platform to draw attention to issues close to her heart, and this aspect of her legacy is underplayed in favor of a more superficial focus on her appearance. Diana's final years, a reduction to tragedy without nuance. The Crown hints at Diana's final years, marked by her separation from Prince Charles, her relationships with other men, and her ongoing battles with the media and royal family. While the series captures the sense of isolation and pain she felt during this period, it often portrays her as a perpetual victim of circumstance, unable to find true happiness or stability. This portrayal overlooks the complexity of Diana's life after her separation from Charles. She continued to engage in meaningful humanitarian work, such as her campaign against landmines, which was a cause she felt passionately about. She also explored new relationships and pursued personal growth, finding ways to assert her independence and redefine her identity beyond the confines of her marriage and royal title. The series tends to focus heavily on her suffering and sense of betrayal, neglecting the resilience and strength she demonstrated in attempting to build a life of her own. The portrayal of Diana's death, a focus on scandal over reality. The Crown does not yet fully delve into the circumstances surrounding Diana's death in the car crash in Paris in 1997, but it hints at the event as the ultimate tragic ending of a life marked by media scrutiny and royal conflicts. The narrative approach suggests that Diana's demise was the inevitable conclusion of her contentious relationship with the press and her tumultuous life in the public eye. While Diana's death was undeniably tragic and raised serious questions about media intrusion, the portrayal risks simplifying the many factors that contributed to the accident. It overlooks the broader context, including the role of the paparazzi, the conditions in which the accident occurred, and the complex legal and political aftermath that followed. By framing her death primarily as a result of her strained relationship with the media and the royal family, the series may reduce a deeply complex and multifaceted tragedy to a simplistic narrative of inevitable downfall. In its portrayal of Princess Diana, The Crown succeeds in capturing some aspects of her charisma, vulnerability, and the intense public interest that surrounded her life. However, the series also takes significant creative liberties, resulting in numerous errors and misrepresentations that often distort the reality of Diana's experiences. By emphasizing certain aspects of her story, such as her victimhood, isolation, or supposed manipulative tendencies, the show overlooks the full complexity of Diana's character, her humanitarian legacy, and the genuine nuances of her personal and public life. These dramatizations serve to heighten the emotional stakes and provide a compelling narrative for viewers, but they also risk perpetuating simplified or incomplete understandings of who Diana was and what she stood for. As with much of The Crown, it is important to remember that the series is a work of historical fiction, not a definitive account. It uses real events and figures as a basis for storytelling, often bending the facts to fit its dramatic aims, and viewers should approach its portrayal of Diana with a critical understanding of these creative choices. Princess Diana, often hailed as the People's Princess, was not only a beloved member of the British royal family, but also a global style icon whose fashion choices have left an indelible mark on the world of fashion. Netflix's drama series The Crown brings Diana's sartorial journey to life, capturing the evolution of her style from her early days as a shy, young kindergarten teacher to her later years as a confident and independent figure. However, while The Crown strives to recreate some of Diana's most iconic looks with great accuracy, it also takes several creative liberties in its portrayal of her fashion choices. This analysis will explore both the accuracies and inaccuracies in how The Crown portrays Princess Diana's fashion, providing a closer look at how the series navigates the intersection of history, aesthetics, and storytelling. Recreating iconic outfits, a nod to real-life looks. The Crown is meticulous in its effort to recreate some of Princess Diana's most iconic outfits, ensuring that viewers recognize the real-life moments that defined her style evolution. The costume designers have paid careful attention to detail, replicating many of Diana's memorable looks from public appearances, state events, and royal tours. For example, the series accurately portrays Diana's famous Travolta dress, the midnight blue velvet gown she wore to a White House dinner in 1985, where she danced with actor John Travolta. This gown, designed by Victor Edelstein, became one of Diana's most famous fashion moments, and The Crown recreates it faithfully, capturing both the dress's elegance and the media frenzy that surrounded the event. The show's attention to detail extends to the fabric, cut, and even the accessories Diana wore, showcasing the gown's deep V neckline and full skirt, as well as her sapphire and diamond choker. Similarly, the series accurately replicates Diana's pink polka dot dress worn during her 1983 tour of Australia with Prince Charles, a dress that became an iconic look in the early days of her marriage. The costume team also successfully recreates the pastel blue suit she wore when leaving St. Mary's Hospital with newborn Prince William in 1982, a look that is etched in the collective memory of royal watchers. These faithful recreations are essential to The Crown's narrative, as they anchor viewers in recognizable moments from Diana's public life. They also demonstrate the show's commitment to honoring Diana's legacy as a style icon, allowing audiences to connect with the real-life events that shaped her fashion evolution. Capturing the evolution of Diana's style, from shy debutante to confident icon. One of the most accurate aspects of The Crown's portrayal of Diana's fashion is how it captures the evolution of her style over the years. The series begins with her early days as a timid, young woman entering the royal spotlight, dressed in frilly blouses, oversized bows, and demure skirts that reflect her innocence and inexperience. These outfits accurately reflect Diana's early fashion choices, which were characterized by a youthful, somewhat naive style that aligned with her sheltered upbringing and early entry into royal life. As the series progresses, Diana's wardrobe becomes more sophisticated, reflecting her growing confidence and awareness of her role in the public eye. The Crown effectively depicts her transition to more tailored, elegant pieces, such as the structured suits she wore for formal engagements, the glamorous evening gowns designed by Catherine Walker and Bruce Oldfield, and her chic, casual outfits that demonstrated a keen sense of contemporary fashion. This evolution is historically accurate, as Diana indeed underwent a dramatic style transformation throughout the 1980s and 1990s, moving from a girlish aesthetic to a bold, modern, and sometimes provocative fashion sense, highlighting Diana's role as a trendsetter and fashion innovator. The Crown also accurately portrays Diana's role as a fashion trendsetter who broke away from traditional royal norms to create her unique style. The series captures her love for bright colors, bold patterns, and unconventional choices, such as wearing off-the-shoulder gowns, low-cut dresses, and daring necklines, which were relatively rare for members of the royal family. The show also highlights Diana's preference for high-fashion designers like Versace, Dior, and Chanel, demonstrating her willingness to embrace contemporary trends and push the boundaries of royal fashion expectations. Diana's affinity for practical yet stylish pieces, such as her famous off-duty looks featuring high-waisted jeans, oversized blazers, and graphic sweatshirts, is also well represented. These choices reflect her desire to present herself as approachable and relatable, which is accurate to the real-life Diana who consciously crafted her image to connect with the public. Diana's signature revenge dress, a moment of defiance and empowerment. One of the most iconic moments in The Crown is the portrayal of Diana's revenge dress, the daring black, off-the-shoulder Christina Stambolian cocktail dress she wore to a Vanity Fair party in 1994, the same night Prince Charles admitted to his infidelity in a television interview. The show accurately depicts this moment as a pivotal fashion statement, showcasing Diana's choice to embrace her newfound independence and confidence. The real-life Diana indeed chose this dress as a bold, defiant move, signaling her unwillingness to be cast as a victim in the ongoing royal drama. The show captures the significance of this dress not just as a fashion statement, but as a declaration of empowerment, demonstrating Diana's understanding of the power of image and her ability to control the narrative through her clothing choices. Overemphasis on certain iconic looks, a limited perspective on Diana's style diversity. While The Crown accurately recreates many of Diana's most memorable outfits, the series tends to focus heavily on a select few iconic looks, which can create a skewed representation of her overall fashion style. By repeatedly highlighting these moments, the show reinforces certain aspects of Diana's public image while overlooking the broader diversity of her wardrobe. For instance, the series emphasizes the Travolta dress and the revenge dress as defining moments, but it gives less attention to other significant outfits that also shaped her public persona. Diana was known for her versatility and willingness to experiment with various styles, from casual, sporty ensembles to culturally appropriate attire during international tours. However, The Crown often overlooks these subtleties, reducing her fashion legacy to a handful of dramatic moments, rather than portraying the full range of her sartorial choices. Dramatizing fashion for narrative impact, fictionalized elements. The Crown sometimes takes creative liberties by exaggerating or dramatizing certain aspects of Diana's fashion choices to suit its narrative goals. For example, the series depicts Diana's fashion as a weapon in her ongoing battle with the royal family and as a means of rebellion against the constraints of her role. While there is some truth to the idea that Diana used fashion to express herself and assert her independence, the show amplifies this concept to the point where it becomes a defining characteristic of her character arc. In reality, Diana's relationship with fashion was more complex. While she did use her clothing to send messages and make statements, not every outfit was chosen with the intention of defying the royal family or challenging norms. Many of her choices were simply a reflection of her evolving tastes, her desire to connect with the public, and her personal comfort. By framing Diana's fashion choices as primarily driven by a desire for rebellion or manipulation, the series simplifies her relationship with clothing, overlooking the nuanced ways in which she navigated her identity through style. Condensing the timeline of fashion evolution and accelerated transformation. The Crown often condenses the timeline of Diana's fashion evolution, presenting her transformation from a shy, awkward teenager to a confident fashion icon as happening more rapidly than it did in reality. The series portrays Diana as quickly shedding her early frumpy looks for a more glamorous wardrobe, implying that her style evolution was almost immediate after marrying Prince Charles. In truth, Diana's style evolution was more gradual, influenced by her growing comfort in the public eye, her personal experiences, and her changing role within the royal family. The transition from her early Sloane Ranger days to her later status as a fashion icon took several years, marked by trial and error, experimentation, and collaboration with trusted designers. The accelerated transformation depicted in the series simplifies this process, making it seem as though Diana instantly adapted to her new role, when in fact her fashion journey was more complex and developed over time. Misrepresenting the motivations behind certain fashion choices, emphasizing conflict over authenticity. The Crown frequently portrays Diana's fashion choices as primarily motivated by her struggles with the royal family, her troubled marriage, and her desire to assert her independence. While these factors did play a role in shaping her style, the show tends to overemphasize conflict-driven motivations, suggesting that many of her sartorial decisions were intended to provoke or challenge. For example, the series suggests that Diana chose the famous revenge dress solely to retaliate against Charles's infidelity, presenting it as a calculated move designed to make a statement. While this interpretation aligns with the popular narrative surrounding that dress, it overlooks other possible motivations, such as her desire to reclaim her narrative, her need for personal expression, and her attempt to find confidence amidst adversity. Similarly, The show sometimes frames her bold fashion choices as deliberate acts of defiance against the royal family, rather than acknowledging the genuine evolution of her style as she grew into her role and gained confidence. Ignoring Diana's collaborations with designers, a focus on individualism over relationships. The Crown often portrays Princess Diana's fashion choices as entirely her own, driven by personal whims and desires, with little acknowledgement of the collaborative relationships she formed with various designers throughout her life. In reality, Diana's fashion evolution was heavily influenced by her partnerships with designers who understood her tastes, her personality, and the demands of her role as a royal. For example, Diana worked closely with British designers such as Catherine Walker, who became one of her most trusted collaborators. Together, they created a range of looks that balanced the need for royal modesty with modern fashion sensibilities. Similarly, her relationships with designers like Bruce Oldfield and David Emanuel, who designed her iconic wedding dress, were vital in crafting her public image. The Crown tends to underplay these collaborations, instead portraying her fashion choices as almost entirely self-directed, which diminishes the importance of the creative partnerships that were central to her style journey. The overemphasis on drama over practicality, fashion as conflict rather than function. The series often presents Diana's fashion choices as dramatic statements made to stir controversy or challenge the status quo, sometimes at the expense of acknowledging the practical considerations behind her clothing. While Diana certainly understood the power of fashion to communicate messages, many of her choices were also influenced by practical needs. For example, Diana often chose brightly colored clothing for public appearances to ensure she could be easily seen by crowds, a tactic she shared with the Queen. She selected culturally appropriate attire during international visits to show respect for her hosts and foster goodwill. The Crown occasionally overlooks these practical elements, favoring interpretations that emphasize conflict or personal rebellion over Diana's awareness of her public duties and the role her fashion played in fulfilling them. The simplification of Diana's relationship with the royal dress code, nuanced choices, reduced to rebellion. The Crown frequently depicts Diana's relationship with the royal dress code as one of constant defiance, suggesting that her choices were always at odds with the expectations and rules of the royal family. The series often portrays her as pushing back against traditional norms, using her clothing to subtly undermine the royal establishment. While there is some truth to the idea that Diana occasionally broke with royal tradition, for example, wearing dresses with lower necklines or sporting suits that were less conservative than those worn by other royal women, she also adhered to the royal dress code in many respects. Diana understood the importance of protocol and often made choices that reflected her role, such as wearing hats, gloves, and appropriate lengths for skirts. The series' portrayal of her as a perpetual fashion rebel overlooks the times when she conformed to expectations and made thoughtful decisions to balance modern style with royal decorum. Diana's later years, underplaying the intentionality of her style. In the later seasons, The Crown shows Diana moving toward a more streamlined, minimalist style that reflected her growing independence. However, the series sometimes portrays these choices as reactive, a response to her personal struggles or conflicts with the royal family, rather than a proactive decision that marked her confidence and newfound self-identity. In reality, Diana's fashion in her later years was very much an expression of her evolving sense of self. Her shift to simpler, bolder pieces and her adoption of powerful, tailored silhouettes reflected her personal transformation and growing maturity. These choices were not merely reactions to her circumstances, but were intentional statements of who she had become, a modern, empowered woman charting her own course. The series tends to underplay this aspect, reducing her later fashion to mere symbolism of defiance, rather than recognizing it as a reflection of her true personal growth. A nuanced story that The Crown doesn't fully tell. The Crown offers a compelling visual journey through Princess Diana's fashion evolution, capturing many of her iconic moments and showcasing the transformative power of her style. The series is accurate in its recreation of key outfits and moments that defined her image as a global style icon. However, it also falls into the trap of dramatizing her fashion choices for narrative impact, sometimes at the expense of historical accuracy. By overemphasizing certain iconic looks, condensing the timeline of her style evolution, and framing her choices primarily around themes of conflict and defiance, The Crown often simplifies Diana's relationship with fashion. It underestimates the complexity of her sartorial decisions, which were influenced not only by personal feelings and her relationship with the royal family, but also by her role as a public figure, her humanitarian work, and her collaborations with designers who helped her shape her unique style. Ultimately, while The Crown succeeds in capturing the broad strokes of Diana's fashion story, it misses the opportunity to fully explore the rich, multifaceted reality of how she used clothing as a means of self-expression, communication, and connection with the world. For viewers, it serves as a visually striking interpretation, but should be seen with an understanding that it is a dramatized version of history, where fact and fiction blend to serve the series' broader narrative goals. Fashion in 2024 sees a strong revival of the 1980s and 1990s aesthetic, periods during which Diana's style was at its peak. Many designers and fashion houses are channeling Diana's penchant for bold colors, strong silhouettes, and mix of formal and casual wear in their collections. Diana was known for her ability to combine traditional elegance with contemporary flair, a blend that perfectly aligns with today's trend of mixing high and low fashion. Oversized blazers and power suits. One of the most notable trends in 2024 that draws directly from Diana's wardrobe is the return of oversized blazers and power suits. Diana was frequently seen in sharp, tailored jackets with pronounced shoulders, often worn over simple tops or blouses. This silhouette has made a significant comeback, with designers like Balmain, Saint Laurent, and Alexander McQueen featuring oversized blazers in their latest collections. The look is both powerful and versatile, embodying the confidence and independence that Diana exuded in her later years. The trend is often styled with jeans or casual pants, much like Diana's famous off-duty looks, making it a perfect blend of sophistication and comfort. Statement knitwear and sweatshirts. Diana's casual looks, particularly her iconic oversized sweatshirts and statement knitwear, have also found their way into 2024 fashion trends. Her memorable appearances in bold, graphic sweaters, such as the famous black sheep jumper by Warm and Wonderful, have inspired a resurgence of statement knitwear. Modern brands and designers are reimagining these pieces with fresh, contemporary designs while maintaining the quirky, playful spirit that Diana embodied. The trend reflects a broader cultural shift towards nostalgia and the desire for comfort-driven yet stylish apparel. The enduring popularity of revenge dressing. One of the most memorable moments in fashion history is Diana's appearance in the revenge dress, the stunning black off-the-shoulder number by Christina Stambolian, worn shortly after Prince Charles publicly admitted to his infidelity. This look has come to symbolize a form of empowerment dressing that women continue to embrace in 2024.